right, please be seated, everybody. So we have a few brave souls here with us. I know we have some folks joining us online. Good morning to all of you, particularly to Kennedy Copeland, who is at home battling our puppy. So we love you, sweetheart. Thank you, worship team. That was absolutely beautiful. So today we're going to talk about praying for peace, but maybe in a little different way than you might think this message would go. And I want to take you back to when I met Angela. Okay, so it was 1994. We're getting old. I can't believe these anniversaries. We just celebrated 22nd anniversary. Unbelievable. I was at a Greek awards banquet at OSU. So I was in a fraternity. She was in a sorority. We had won some award. I don't even remember what it was. And I had gone up front to receive the award. I think it was for like the blood drive or something, because we didn't win anything really meaningful. Our fraternity didn't. So I got the award, and I look out, and I see right over in kind of this area this really hot girl. I mean, smoking hot. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to meet her. So when everything is over and we finish up the banquet, I kind of make my way back, and one of my friends is sitting next to her who is also, I think, interested in her. So he's not letting me talk to her. He's like kind of blocking me from visiting with her, but I persevere, and ultimately I call her. She won't return my call. She won't give me the time of day. I find a friend, a mutual friend of ours, Katie, who I kind of network in, and I work through Katie to help me get a date. I get a date. I'll never forget our first date was at a Hardee's, back when you had Hardee's. And we started talking at like 7 or 8 at night, and it was 24 hours, and we are literally there talking 8 o'clock in the morning. And she is like, oh my gosh, I've got to go to class. And so I didn't really care, whether I went to class or not. It wasn't, my priority was there at that time. And so what happened is, and I want you to go with me a little bit on this analogy. So initially, I knew of her. Okay, I kind of knew who she was. I was familiar. She was president of her house. I was president of my house. I kind of knew who she was. When I saw her at that banquet, I wanted to get to know about her. Then I moved into, we began dating, and I began to learn things about her. And now, really 27 years later, because we dated 5 years and now I've been married 22 years, now I really know her, okay? The analogy that I'm trying to make is in our relationship with God. Now, I want to ask you this, and I'm not a guilt preacher, but I just want you to think about the fact that if my time with Angela had been limited to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on Sunday morning, okay, that's the only time we talked, that's the only time we spent time together, maybe 5-10 minutes in the morning as I was driving into work, if that was all the time that we spent together, how well would I have known her? Probably not very well, right? Probably not very well. It's the same in our relationship with God. It's the same. The time that we spend, and here's what kind of moved me to this lesson today. For about 5 or 6 years, a buddy of mine, Mick Skovanek, and I have led, it's called the Journey Group. It's a discipleship group, and it's basically a 9-month process where we are really immersed in the Word, and it's all about abiding with Jesus Christ. That's the gist of it. Several of our guys here have been through it with us. And what I've seen over those 5 years is real transformation. I mean, I can think of a number. Myself, Mick, Brad, JJ, James, many of these guys are watching online, Richard, Brett, Carlos, Will, Greg. I mean, as I think about the 5 years, I can't remember if it's 5 or 6 years that we've been doing this, I think about real transformation. People that whenever we started this journey together lived in tremendous fear, tremendous anxiety, always looking to the world for acceptance and looking to the world for provision. And over a period of time, and even to this day, I see these individuals live with much greater peace, with much greater calmness, with much greater reliance upon God and less reliance upon a world that sometimes we can't always count on. And I thought about, what happened with these guys? It wasn't a curriculum. There's no magic, those that have been through. There's no magic in the curriculum. There's definitely no magic in the teacher, It is time. They began to spend time and abide in a relationship daily with Jesus Christ. And just like I didn't get to know Angela in that first Coke date that we had, it took years, it's taken years to get to know her. It takes years, and of time to get to know God and to develop a relationship where it goes from knowing about God to knowing Him and truly having a relationship. There's no replacement for time together to get to know somebody better. There is no replacement. There's no great teacher that can in 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes on Sunday can teach you enough so that you have a relationship with God. It is time. I always thought that a mature Christian, I used to always hear these terms, baby Christian, a mature Christian, and I always thought, well, I got to get older. I mean, the key is to have gray hair, like some of our attendees have, or maybe no hair. To get to know, it's got to be a matter of time to get to know Jesus. It's not a matter of age, it's a matter of time. It's a matter of experiencing Him. If we wonder whether or not prayer is important, I want to lead you to the life of Jesus. And I knew Jesus prayed. I was familiar with a couple of experiences of Jesus praying, but I want to give you just a quick example of all the times that we see Jesus praying in the Bible, okay? In Mark 1:35, it says, "And in the morning, a great while before day, he rose and went out to a lonely place, and there he prayed." This verse, which is really early in his public ministry, shows the importance of him starting his day praying with God. And I would present to us that this is critical, particularly during a time like right now when we are bombarded with negative. It's critical to anchor to Him early in the morning before we start. Interestingly, according to early Jewish tradition, I was kind of studying this verse, and it said that he often prayed at a small grotto on the southeastern side of the Mount of Beatitudes, just across from the area where he multiplied the loaves and fishes. In one of the greatest miracles that we've ever seen. He prayed in Mark 6:46 after the multiplication of the loaves. After he had taken leave of them, he went up on the mountain to pray. In Luke 6:12, he prayed immediately before choosing his 12 apostles. Critically important. In these days, he went into the hills to pray, and all night he continued to pray to God, is what it said. He had important decisions to make. What did he do? He prayed a lot. He prayed all night. If it's good enough for Jesus, I think it's good enough for us. He prayed before Peter professed his faith that Jesus was Christ in Luke 9:18. Now it happened that as he was praying alone, the disciples were with him, and he asked them, "Who do the people say that I am?" He prayed right before the transfiguration. Luke 9:28. About 8 days after these things, he took with him Peter and John and James, and they went up on the mountain to pray. He prayed before teaching the Our Father prayer. Luke 11:1, he was praying in a certain place, and when he ceased, one of his disciples said to him, "Lord, teach us to pray as John taught his disciples." And of course, he prayed before the crucifixion in the Garden at Gethsemane. In Matthew 26, then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And taking with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. And he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me." Jesus took the time to pray a lot. He spent a lot of time in prayer. And you wonder, why did he have such an amazing impact in a 3.5-year public ministry? It's because he was so connected to the will of the Father, and he was so connected because he prayed a lot. Time is an amazing thing. We make time for things that are important to us. We make time for Netflix series or TikToks in our house. We make a lot of time. We make a lot of time for TikToks in our house. I make time for meetings with people that I deem as important. We make time for sporting events. We make time for the things that are important to us. That is a fact. I had lunch about it was before all the COVID stuff. So let's say 2 or 3 months ago. I have no concept of COVID time. I have no concept of time anymore. But I'm going to say it was about 3 months ago. I had lunch with a former governor who shall remain nameless. And we were talking about, he was saying, our current governor, he needs to spend more time in economic development. He needs to be out. He needs to be, which he is. It just didn't always in the papers. But he said, that needs to be his number one priority. And I said, Governor, as you know, it's tough. I said, you're pulled in a lot of different ways. It's really hard to balance, all of the demands that are on a governor's time. And he said, and I'll never forget this. He said, it doesn't matter what we say, it's how we use our time that determines our priorities. And he was talking about the governorship, but it is true in our lives. It's how we use our time. R.A. Torrey said, we're too busy to pray, and so we are too busy to have power. We have a great deal of activity, but we accomplish little. Many services, but few conversions. Much machinery, but few results. So here's the deal. God wants to be involved in our lives. He longs for us to invite him in to our lives. He's actually hurt when we do not. I want you to hear these verses with me. Jeremiah 2:32, does a young woman forget her jewelry? Does a bride hide her wedding dress? Yet for years on end, my people have forgotten me. It hurts him. It hurts God when we go through our day. I shared this on the devotional, but I'll just share it briefly here. I had a dream one night. It was so vivid that when I would wake up, this is in my dream, I would wake up and there Jesus would be waiting for me to wake up out of bed. And he couldn't wait to spend time with me. And some mornings I would go straight to him. And we would spend time together, and that made him so happy. And some mornings I would go straight to my phone and start looking at headlines, emails, Facebook, etc., and that really hurt him. It was so vivid to me in my dream, and I believe that. I believe that he wants to spend time with us so much, and he's hurt when we don't. In Isaiah 1:18, it says, please come and let's reason together, implores the Lord. Even though your sins are like scarlet, they'll be white like snow. Though they're like crimson, they'll become like wool. Just come reason with me. Come spend time with me. James 4:8, come close to God and God will come close to you. So the journey group that I mentioned earlier, we actually will meet tonight, and we always meet here, and this is our lives, okay? And this is my life. This is truth. What happens is on Sunday, as we get closer to that time of ours to get together, all kinds of things come up. Okay, every time. I began to think about, it's Sunday evening. I really need to get ready for the week. And something will come up at home, or something will come up at work, or some distraction will come in. The ball game will run long, or something will happen. I think, oh man, I don't really want to go do that. For 5 years, this has been the feeling. For 5 years, oh man, here we go again. And then I get here and begin to abide with Jesus and spend time with those men, and it is magical. And I believe that Satan has a desire to distract us. I think when we are growing closer to God, he's going to do everything he can to pull us away. And it's got to be up to us to push through and spend that time. One of our one of my favorite shows, I think I may be the only one in the house, is this hospital show called New Amsterdam. And they're in New York, and it's a kind of a hospital where they deal with a poor clientele, and it's a super great show. And there was a episode where there was a group that met in the bottom of the hospital, and they were taking up all the space. Nobody could get around, and they were there praying. It was a group from a church that was there praying for the patients, for the doctors, for everybody. And it began to annoy a lot of the healthcare professionals because they were in their way. And so they asked them to leave, and then all of a sudden, the healthcare professionals needed prayer. Okay, some things happened. Patients were about to die, and so the head main character goes and seeks out this church group and says, I don't know what you guys do, but I just really need you to pray. We need a lot of help. And the head of the church group said, that's not how it works. He said, I want to get this right. He said, prayer doesn't change others until it changes us. And I thought about that so much, and I thought, you know what? Prayer it's wonderful to pray for other people and to see results. It is. There is nothing like it. We've seen it here in this church a lot. But it's even better to have prayer change us, where we begin to draw closer to God and have a mind more like His and to think more like Him. For so many years, my life has been a roller coaster. And I don't know if you can relate to this. I suspect some of you can. A good day, good feedback, everything's wonderful. Man, I was on top of the world. Bad day, boss gets after you, somebody's mean to me. Lately, bad newspaper articles, that are not accurate, by the way. I'm down in the depths. The beauty of abiding with Jesus is all day long you can say, when things are going well, thank you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for this, what is a perfect day outside. Thank you for bringing us back together. Thank you for youth baseball, which we're going to experience right after this. Thank you for, getting us open back up. Thank you. And then when you read the newspaper and people say things that aren't true, I trust you. I trust you, Jesus. I trust that you are going to use this for your good. I thank you and I trust you all day long, one or the others. Philip Brooks said that if God doesn't want something for me, I shouldn't want it either. Spending time in meditative prayer, getting to know God, helps align my desires with God's. And that is a very peaceful feeling when you get to a point to where you want whatever God wants. Whatever He's going to do in our lives, that's what we want. We don't want for us. We want to do His will. I used to think that God was this distant, powerful judge that was always looking at me and thinking, man, that dude messes up a lot. I thought he was always, there was like this big tablet up there, and there was a check mark every time Sean messed up. And man, there's pages in this deal. I'm telling you, if that's the truth, there are many, many big chief notepads with check marks of Sean's of messing up over the years. And now what I know after years of an abiding relationship is that's not it. That's not what He is. We were made in His likeness. And I want you to think about if your kids, those of you that have children or grandchildren, if is your life all about judging them, number one, no, it's not. It's not. And number two, if those kids only came to you and showed you love when they wanted something, how do you feel? It doesn't feel great, does it? Well, when you know that you're a means to an end, and oh man, they're being nice, so there must be an ask coming around a corner, that doesn't feel great. You want to be loved all the time, so does God. He doesn't want to just be the inventory prayer where we come every day and say, okay, God, here's where I need your help today. Man, I got these problems. Help us out here. Bring Tesla to Tulsa, Lord. That's what he wants, which I would appreciate that, God, if you could do that. But he wants us to be with him all the time, whether we are in need or whether we are in plenty. I want to close here with a story in 2 Chronicles, and it was about King Jehoshaphat, who I am going to call King Joe because this name really, I struggle with this name a lot. So the king in Israel found themselves in a really tough spot, okay? 3 enemy nations were on their way to make war against them. They did not have sufficient army to be able to fight against these 3 enemies together. And though he was afraid, the king's first response was to gather his people and to pray. That's the first thing he did, was he brought his people together and he prayed. He stood before the whole nation and he prayed aloud. And his prayer is a great model to those of us who can feel stressed out and overwhelmed and feel like we have 3 armies coming at us all at the same time. In Matthew 19:26, Jesus says, with God, everything is possible. And the king knew this was true. He reminded himself of it as he prayed. He said, are you not the God who is in heaven? You rule over all the kingdoms of the nation. Power and might are in your hand, and no one can withstand you. The king's enemy was coming against him, but he didn't look at the enemy. He looked up at God. He chose to take his eyes off of the problem and instead put his eyes on God's strength and on his power. He reminded himself of who God is, and God delivered him. I want to read this to you from C.S. Lewis. This is back in 1948, and this is when an atomic bomb paralyzed everyone with fear. Okay, they were certain that it was going to hit at any time. His words really ring true today. He said, the first action to be taken is to pull ourselves together. If we're all going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb or a virus, he didn't say that, that was my addition. Let that bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things, praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint, is actually what he said, Paul. And a game of darts, not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They may break our bodies, a microbe can do that, but they need not dominate our minds. Charles Stanley said that we can be tired, weary, and emotionally distraught, but after spending time alone with God, we find that he injects into our bodies energy, power, and strength. As we close, I just want to ask us all, both here and out there, what are you worried about today? What is on your mind today? What has got you anxious? And I would present to you that the answer to this is prayer. The answer to this is prayer. Instead of worrying, let's spend quality time with God and let him infuse us with peace. What happens over time, Angela's got this workout bottle where it has water, but in it, it's got a little place where you can put fruit, like you put strawberries and pineapple or whatever, and over time, that fruit infuses the water. It begins to taste the same. This is what I'm talking about. The more time that we spend with God, what you will find is this roller coaster days all of a sudden will begin to smooth out. The critique of man will matter less. The praise of man will matter less because all that matters is our relationship with him. So I thank you so much. I think John and Paula are going to come forward. And as we close, if anybody would like prayer for anything, we ask you to please come forward. Thank you so much. I appreciate being with you today.